right, welcome everybody. Shane Carter here, Hampshire Capital. With me as always, our VP of Investor Relations, Eddie Austin. How are you, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic this beautiful day.
Oh man, it's nice.
It is.
Sun's shining, talking about multifamily apartment buildings, even about investing, all the above, man, it's great.
Yes,
just
sir.
Before we started this, we got to talking about appreciation. And really, what is appreciation?
You mean besides the fact that I really appreciate you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it's the same thing with property. So how do you appreciate real estate? What is that? I think a lot of people talk about it, but we got to think about when we're talking to investors and not the everyday person that, for us, it's just our language. It's what we speak.
Yeah.
But what does that really mean? So let's speak to investors for a minute. Let's take a step back and let's go through the business plan on the everyday person. And let's break it down to say, okay, this is when somebody says, I love depreciation because what it does for my taxes. But what I really like is appreciation because what can appreciation do for us in the next 5 years?
That's right. And so there is a simple appreciation that happens. We want to separate kind of what I would call baseline appreciation from what I would also call forced or created appreciation. Yes. And forced appreciation is different than sort of baseline appreciation. Assets on a baseline have the ability to appreciate based upon a multitude of factors: interest rate environment, cap rate environment. Increase in inflation, rent growth,
population. So as more people move to Houston, the values of physical properties come up in value because there's more. So let's see, if you're doing a residential level, which we don't do residential, but the more homes that get bought and resold, that raises that value, right? Because there's sales comps. Well, there's sales comps with real estate properties too. So when a property is sold, it was bought at this basis value and sold at this basis value, that is a step up in basis, correct?
That's correct. That's exactly correct. And by the way, quick interesting fact that I found out this morning, just as an aside, Houston adds 150 people a day. 150 people per day move there, which is interesting. So, separate from Florida, who has like, gosh, I want to say there's 1,000 people a month that move to Florida, which is pretty crazy.
I talked to a buddy of mine in Orlando. He goes, no, Eddie. It's 2,000 a month moving to South Florida. Or to Florida, Jim.
To Florida, yeah. It's a massive number. So, obviously that's where we invest, and that's why we invest there. And that is a function of what causes baseline appreciation is the supply demand. You got a lot of demand coming into an area. Supply's been trying to keep up, but these growth markets continue to, demand outpaces supply.
Absolutely.
So we've got that for how an asset appreciates in value. But let's talk about some of the other ways that we can appreciate an asset.
Well, yeah, I think that a lot of people, they think about forced appreciation. They're like, what are you forcing? Like, it's not really we're forcing. In my opinion, respectfully, we're implementing a business plan.
Yeah.
And what is that business plan? So we probably bought at a basis value. That's going back to the basis value. Maybe $145 a door. And we conservatively underwrite that we're going to exit that property at $166 a door. And then how do we get there? What does that look like? So that's a business plan. And that business plan is this. It's a 300-unit property. When we purchase the property, let's back up. So let's look at value on commercial property. Value on commercial property is always what is the land worth? What is the replacement cost of the building? What is a sales comp, relative sales comp for like buildings, like years it's been sold? But more than that, the best part about commercial properties and the value is the net operating income that they produce.
The income approach,
right? Increase the income on the property, the value of the property goes up because that's what it can repay a loan with.
That's right.
So, for instance, we bought this property, $146 a door. We know it's going to appreciate on a basis value just because it's history. Then what the really cool part is we go in and we renovate this property. We make the curb appeal better, new flowers, rebrand the property, new siding, paint it, put a new roof on it, repave the parking lot, redo some of the units. With that, we're able to raise the rents. Say we're $200 below market value. So if the rent is $700 a month and we're going to raise it to $900 a month, well, the only way we're going to do that is to go in and do some type of a strategy. And sometimes, look, the owner did a really good job of keeping and maintaining the property. There was no real deferred maintenance. And you could probably just have someone move out of the building and move someone back in, but on the new market rent, and not have to implement any CapEx strategies. But still, maybe we bought a property, it's a vintage property, and we want to put in, plank flooring, we want to put in granite countertops, new cabinets, some updated vanities, maybe new paint on the walls, maybe we're getting away from the shag carpet, and we want to put in some real carpet.
That's right.
Something like that. And, go to the grays instead of the greens and stuff like that on our wall paint. And then we can implement maybe to $300 a month. So if we look at $300 times 300 units, the gross rent has increased tremendously.
Sure has.
And that, in my opinion, that is what forced appreciation means. It's not that we're going in and we're forcing things to happen. That's not what it means. It means we've made a business plan and we're implementing the business plan for that forced appreciation.
You know what, Eddie? Maybe we should rename it, right? Maybe we should just coin a new term. Maybe instead of forced appreciation, which can, like you said, maybe have some negative connotations, why don't we call it engineered appreciation, where we're actually engineering and designing how we can implement a business plan to create more appreciation on the asset.
Yeah, and with that, you might buy a piece of property, amenities make a property more valuable. Maybe it doesn't have a dog park. There's a lot of people now that have dogs. So an apartment building that you have a dog park where it's a community style, people can literally come to that place. They can take their dog out and run it through the park, have fun. Maybe there's some shade trees that we put in. There's a little picnic area. Maybe, a pool is there. We get that up and running. We put out some little sunshades. All those are reasons that people would pay more to live there.
That's right.
And that is appreciation.
That is. And so, like you said, it's a function of net operating income, which is really just your income minus your expenses, right? And so we implement a business plan to improve the amenities, to improve the exteriors, to do a value add renovation on the interior units. That is all a function of driving the income and driving that sort of gross effective rent, driving that the income side of the equation. And then what are some of the things we do to reduce the expenses at the same time? Because really, when I think about how to to engineer appreciation, it's about the net operating income, which has two sides of the equation: the income and the expenses. We want to raise the income, and if we did just that and kept the expenses the same, I suppose that would be good. But of course, we don't stop there. We also try to diminish the expenses or lower the operating expense ratio, and therefore grow that NOI even greater and amplify those returns even further. So what are some of the things that we do to diminish expenses in a property?
One of the biggest things that sometimes we get these opportunities to buy off-market properties that are self-managed. Self-managed sometimes that it's kept on a legal pad, what the management looks like, and you're calling a plumber every time, you're calling an electrician every time, you're calling HVAC every time. Those bills mount up big time.
Yeah.
So it's extremely expensive. And a lot of those properties suffer deferred maintenance because they can't afford to fix the gutters and the soffits and the siding and stuff that need fixed for the appearance reasons. They're just trying to maintain the actual inner workings, the infrastructure of the building. So self-managed, we interview a management company when we buy a property, or we add that on to our existing property management arm. And we really look at what are the expenses, how much are we paying for payroll, how much are we paying for maintenance? Maybe we look at a piece of property and there's 200 bills a year for fixing air conditioners. Okay, let's put in new energy efficient air conditioners. We're going to better our electricity costs. We're going to have happier tenants, and we're not going to be calling HVAC every week.
That's right.
So those are direct expenses that can be lowered by just implementing a good business plan and understanding what those expenses are. Just the same as implementing a pet policy, implementing a RUBS program. Maybe there's laundry on site. Maybe we need to put laundry washers and dryers in the actual units when we renovate. And
that's a great idea. I want to pause for a second and just do a quick analysis so that the folks listening to this understand that's just a small slice of an idea. But let's take that for a second. Let's say, and this is a real world example, by the way, we put in a washer and dryer inside the unit. And let's say that we lease those units from a third-party company, so we don't have any liability. We're not owning them. We're just leasing them from a company for $30 a month, and we're charging the residents $50 a month, right? So we get a $20 a month arbitrage. Okay, it doesn't sound like much, right? It's a service to the tenants. They're happy. They're paying $50 a month. They have amazing washers and dryers. Anything ever goes wrong, they're replaced or fixed immediately. And it's a great service to them that they don't have to go down to a public or communal, laundry facility. Let's do some quick math. We got a 400 unit property at $20 a month. That's $8,000 a month. Okay, times 12. That's $96,000 a year. Boy, that seems like that's a lot of income. But here's the crazy part. Let's do that. Divide that by 0.05 for a 5% cap rate, sort of a typical.
Yep.
We just raised the value of the property almost $2 million.
Yeah.
That's the power of this type of amplification of raising the NOI, is it really increases value. Just $20 a month across 400 units is almost a $2 million increase in value on the property.
Yeah. It's huge.
Huge.
And that's just one small
And that's
thing.
just one little sliver. What if you did that at $100 a month? And did multiple $20 a month? How much value are you adding and creating, and how much wealth are you creating for ourselves and our investors? It's really powerful.
Right, absolutely. Another thing I think gets forgotten about a lot is there's pest control. And now here's an interesting take. I'm going to go around in a full circle here. So we did a building in Louisville that was a student housing that there was no trash implementation that was ever thought about. So the building was full of roaches because nobody ever thought about trash. So, you could have hired someone like Valet Trash or one of these trash people that will actually take the trash from the physical door and put it to the dumpster or something like that. And then you mitigate your bug problem. Because when that trash sits in the hallways and it sits out in front of the doors, bugs are going to come.
Yeah.
And then you have a pest control problem. You have mad tenants. You're getting a pest control guy in there every time a tenant calls down the leasing office. It's just bad juju, right?
Yeah, and it looks and smells bad. The property doesn't feel good, right? So you're trying to show it to new prospective tenants, and it just doesn't represent well. And yeah, it's that sort of negative loop that happens, right?
So again, having a good property management and a good understanding of what everything needs to be done to operate it properly to optimize your expenses, because you got to think about the bugs. You got to think about the roof. You got to think about your amenities. You've got to think about all these things to really win in your business plan. Because at the end of the day, like you said, we're optimizing. Your spread is this when we buy it. We raise the rents, but we also drop our expenses, and then our profit margins go like this. That's what we're trying to get to.
That's right.
Why we get these things.
And that's why we try to target properties that have a high, OPEX ratio, right? Where the expenses are a little higher than average. They're in that 55, 60% range. And so we know that there's something askew. And sometimes it is just that the income is that low. And once you raise the income high enough, you get to a sort of normalized 50% or less OPEX ratio. But more often than not, we can do both. And that's exactly what we do. That's what our asset managers do. That's what we focus on is every week, every month, every day, we are focused on what is the best thing that we can do for the property that improves our tenants' lives, improves our bottom line, and increases the NOI. Where do all those things come together? They don't need to be mutually exclusive thought processes. There's a way to do them all together and create value for all stakeholders involved in the property. And so that's our focus. That's what we try to do.
You know, I don't know if you ever looked at it this way. Not many people look at it like this, but what is the cost per door on expenses?
Yeah.
So normally, we come real close to buying a property because I knew this was a 180 unit property. The guy gives me the expenses over the phone. He tells me it's 180 units. That's $6,000 a door for expenses. I knew we could drop the expenses down by $2,000 a door. That's how bad it was being mismanaged, because by average, everything we were underwriting, we were at $4,000 a door. So, I don't know. He hasn't sent me the T12s. We haven't got into the weeds yet. But all I do know is that he is telling me that his expenses are X. And I took my calculator, I took his expenses, divided by the many doors, $6,000 a door. And I'm like, we should be at $4,000 a door.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I would love to buy your property.
And I think it probably comes down to something that you pointed out earlier, which was, by the way, a great example, and that I think a lot of people, a lot of operators sometimes miss, is that, you dig into those expenses. What are some of your major items? Why do you have such high boiler repairs? Why do you have such high pest control expenses? Right? What's the root cause of that? Not just accept that and then adopt that into your own P&L and business plan, but dig into that. Why is that happening? Why is that the case? And maybe, like for example, with a boiler or this pest control issue, there's an underlying cause, right? In the pest issue, it was a trash issue. So maybe we just change the trash component a little bit, and you can essentially almost eliminate now that entire line item that's directly affecting your bottom line and directly affecting your expenses, which is directly affecting your income and the value of your property, right? And then on the boiler repair side, you look at something, you've got huge HVAC, R&M, repair and maintenance costs, R&M we call it, huge boiler expense repair costs. And it's like, well, gosh, maybe that thing's at the end of its useful lifespan. Maybe we need to just,
how old is it?
How old is it? Why is it breaking down so much? Maybe we just need to have a capital expenditure, $50,000, and we're going to go in. We're just going to fix it all, 100%. Day one, we're going to go in and we're going to do it the right way. And now we save ourselves that $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year expense. How much is that worth, right?
Well, I can tell you what it's worth. It's exponentially worth, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because a tenant with hot water every single morning and every single evening, he's a happy tenant.
That's right.
They're not calling down the leasing office. They're not getting peed off about everything going on in the property. So your happy tenant, they're going to pay their month, they're going to pay their year, and they're going to be there, and they're going to tell their friends about it.
Yeah.
But every day, wake up on Friday, you got hot water. Wake up on Saturday, there's no hot water. You're not going to want to do that very long when you're paying to live.
No, and look, and we take it a step further, and we show our investors and institutional equity, and obviously for ourselves too. Well, let's do that analysis. Is that investment in that boiler, is that prudent? Is that an intelligent investment? And so we do the calculation of, okay, it's going to cost X to do it up front. It's going to save us X per year. Gosh, oftentimes, Eddie, we're seeing 25, 35, 40+% ROI on those capital expenditures, right? So it's just a no-brainer to do it. That's a fantastic return. It's a great use of capital.
You talked about Houston earlier, and any property that I look at in Houston, I would want that property to be gated. And here's why.
Yeah.
Because there is so many people. You said there's 150 people moving to Houston per day. So there's a lot of people driving around.
Yeah.
So you don't want people driving around your property that don't live there, right?
Right.
Or don't have the gate code, because it's a mom or dad or a brother visiting you. Or, so Just the gates. That's another thing. Is that's an added level of safety. Plus, it gives your property less traffic, for people to just come in. So if you're looking at a property in Houston, if it doesn't have gates, think about putting them in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it adds to that level of feeling of safety and feeling of security for your residents. And boy, you can't understate that, right? Having the property, go to every property at night too, and see how is it lit. Are there a lot of dark areas where folks could lurk, or kids or whomever, right? And nefarious things could happen. You want it properly lit, all the parking lots, all the areas around the buildings, and you want people to feel safe on your property, right? That you want your residents to feel like this is a safe place to live, and so great exterior lighting and access control, like pedestrian gates and car gates, to really secure your facility. Those are super important steps to allow residents to feel safe.
As a good operator, sponsor, capital raiser, all the above, if you're doing multifamily, ask yourself when you're on this property, is this a place you feel safe with living? Is this a place that you're proud to own?
Yeah.
Will you tell other people that you own this property?
Yep.
Would you sleep on the property yourself? Those are questions you need to ask. And if you can't answer that honestly, then what is that going to take? Is it gates?
Yeah.
Is it lighting? Is it picking up trash? Those style of things. And I think there's a lot of people that think like us. So having that mindset when you're standing on the property, you're looking around, you're like, I really like this. It makes me feel good, and I would live here.
Yeah, absolutely. My go-to is, what if if my mom or grandmother lived here and I was taking my 3-year-old daughter to go see him, how would I feel?
Exactly.
What would that make me feel like? And is that really how I want my property to feel?
Right. Is there anything else you think we could give a little more value on that you can think of we haven't talked about yet when it comes to appreciation and now engineered appreciation? So basis value.
Yep. So we covered increasing the income, which we do through the business plan, the value add strategy. We talked about some of those other income items, adding, charging for parking, doing, pet fees, having, even sort of like admin fees. We see sometimes people don't have admin fees, and you don't want to feed tenants, to death over these things. But as I proved in my example, $15-20 a month makes a big difference when you're talking about hundreds or even thousands of units. It can really move the needle. And so those other income line items, I think, can be really important. We don't rely upon them in our business plan, though. Those are just sort of cherries on top. We underwrite sort of fundamentals, and we look at the base rent, the pro forma rent, the renovated rent, and where are we sitting in the market for comparative analysis. But then in the expenses, it's how do we decrease our electricity expense? How do we decrease our water and sewer? We've had circumstances where, if you see any puddling or any surface water, it hasn't rained in a few days, we'll dig into that. Is there a valve that's leaking somewhere under the ground and showing itself in terms of water present, which is killing your water bill, right? Because you're getting charged by the consumption. So water's coming through a meter, and if that's just a leaky valve that's allowing water to leak out onto your property, you're paying for that, right? So you got
it could be a $500 bill that's going to save you $3,000.
That's right, exactly. And so all of those little details matter so much, and it's hard to know all this up front. These are things you sort of you learn through the years of doing this, but those are critical in terms of how do you decrease expenses. We talked about, utilizing capital expenditures to solve for an ongoing R&M expense or an ongoing HVAC expense that really shouldn't be there and is inappropriate.
Right.
Those are great ways to lower expenses. Just being intelligent with marketing, right? And how much are you spending on marketing? Really drilling into where is the correlation between your marketing and your traffic and your leases and your occupancy and your days to revenue on your units. Those are all key metrics to really dive into and understand so that you can really maximize NOI. And
Absolutely.
that's super important to drill into all those details and not just take a top level approach, but to get really granular. That's what asset management is. That's what this business is.
Yes.
Is really, they say the devil's in the details. So is the profit.
So is the profit. Yeah. And and with that, I'll touch on this real quick. In anything you do, any type of investing you do, whether you're buying a business, buying, stock, bonds, mutual funds, buying properties, you have to look at the exit plan. What is the exit plan? That is absolutely, it is almost more important to understand the exit plan and then build the story all the way through on what is it going to take to get to the exit plan.
Yes.
Because we want to buy it at this, but we want to sell it at this. Yeah. So that means we may have to put in some fees for tenants to pay, but we can take care of the property through the entire time that we own it.
That's exactly right.
And, you have to really dig into what is the exit plan, what do we want to sell it for, and be intelligent through the years of ownership on getting to that nest egg, get the actual selling point, when we're actually going to turn this thing loose.
Yep.
Or refinance.
Very good point. Absolutely.
Because it's just, everybody, it's like, I've asked so many operators, we've been to 3 real estate conferences so far this year, and I've talked to operators, man, that's a great property you're talking about. What's your exit plan? Whoa.
Yeah, that's a red flag.
This your exit plan should be almost more exciting to talk about than the entire property.
That's right.
Because that's when you're going to return major amounts of capital. That's when we're going to go buy another property.
And that's frankly what the entire business model is predicated on. I saw another deal yesterday where folks were looking for a co-sponsor, a co-GP on the deal. It was a Dallas property, and everything seemed to be okay. Everything seemed reasonable. And then I got to the exit assumption on that cap rate, and it said 4.75. And I said, "What the? Sorry, this is a mid-80s asset. I can't get behind any of this now, right? I mean, that's just an inappropriate exit assumption. You're not going to hit that. And if you do, you got lucky, and you shouldn't be planning for that. And folks should really be weary of anyone who's underwriting to that type of an exit assumption."
This is always confusing, but a seasoned guy can usually answer this one. Would you rather buy at a 6 cap and exit at a 4, or would you rather buy at a 6 cap and exit at an 8?
Yeah, rather buy at a 6 cap and exit at a 4 for sure.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah. So, that's the thing is people really don't understand a cap rate. And cap rate is the capital assumption of what the property is going to sell for. What is the capitalization rate to that property?
Yeah.
People get that upset. They get it messed up. We want to buy a property in a 5 cap area and a 8 cap. That's a good deal. But we want to exit at a different.
Yeah. Yeah. And there needs to be that, we actually underwrite to cap rate expansion. So we underwrite, so our going in cap rate is actually lower than our exit cap rate. That's how we underwrite. And that's just to be safe and to be conservative. And again, we're relying on our pro forma cap rate, so that engineered appreciation that we're going through is going to get us to a point where there's now a spread where we've created enough value that even when we exit that at a cap rate that's higher than what we bought it for, we're still making plenty of money because we've created and engineered that value in the asset.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why it's so critical.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's been another great episode. Guys, please do not forget to like and subscribe and stay tuned. Even hit the little notification bell as you stay tuned with everything we're doing here. These podcasts will just continue to build, and we just went through a list of different episodes we have today. We talked about depreciation, ways to invest, ways to partner. We've talked about LP expected returns in today's market. We've talked about our ESG philosophy. We've talked about our guiding principles in Hampshire Capital. We've talked about a lot so far. And all these episodes will be on YouTube. If they're not on there now, they will be eventually. So by all means, please share it with your friends. Bring us some ideas. Drop us some comments below on what you would like us to talk about next.
Yeah, what's on your mind? We've done 20 or so episodes, and by the time this one drops, it'll probably be a little bit more than that. And we're committed to dropping one every week at a minimum.
Yes.
There will be one that drops every single week. So if there's something that's on your mind, let us know, and we'd be happy to cover it and have an episode strictly about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, great, Eddie. Thanks as always. Been a great episode, buddy.
Yes.
All right. Take care.